Welcome to the Black Male Impact. We are going to have a conversation today with Mr. Odane Brooks. But for those who were here with us earlier, I just want to say my apology. Sometimes, that's how technology is. We cannot control what happens. Things be going good, and then out of nowhere, we have a bit of dysfunction or difficulty. But for those who are here with us, I just want to say thank you. And so I'm just going to go real quick to introduce Mr. Brooks. Then I will allow him to introduce himself. And again, my name is Dr. Richard A. Cross, and I'm the founder of the Black Male Impact. So thanks for being here with us. And whilst you're here, please go ahead and share this conversation with your network. I guarantee you, there will be something shared that will be beneficial, not only to you, but to people who are connected to you. Mr. Brooks, he works in public policy and governance. He also works at where he monitor and evaluate um, policies, not just policies, but he works. If I should say that correctly, well, one of his title is monitoring and evaluation specialist. He can share more with you later after we go through the conversation what that is about, and he's also a recipient of the CARICOM Youth Ambassador. It's an award that is bestowed on young people in the country by the Prime Minister who demonstrate leadership and community involvement. He's also an entrepreneur, and he calls himself the policy scholar. And for a young man who is involved in policy, which I said to him earlier, I see him as a future prime minister because he's doing the work, he's making himself available to make an impact, which is important. Because if you're going to be that leader, you have to make yourself available to the people right now where you are so they can know who you are, so you can develop the trust. And he's doing that in an exceptional way. But before we get into the conversation today, I will just ask Mr. Brooks to share more about himself so you all can have a feel of who he is before we get into the conversation today. Mr. Brooks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cross, again. As I would have reiterated at the top, it's my pleasure to be here on this platform with you. So, who is Odane Brooks? Odane Brooks hails from the rural breadbasket parish of St. Elizabeth here in Jamaica. And if it is one thing about individuals who come from St. Elizabeth, we are all hardworking people. We set big visions, we align our steps, and we pursue whatever our mind conceives. And so Odane Brooks would have started out from St. Elizabeth from a background not of wealth, but of purpose. And that would have given me significant conviction and determination to continue on the path that I am currently on. So, as a professional, I presently serve as the monitoring and evaluation specialist at the Development Bank of Jamaica, where I work on the Biggie program. And this program essentially is a program that supports entrepreneurial ecosystem development and specifically to provide entrepreneurs and different actors within the Jamaican business space the support they need to move them to the next level. But outside of the professional realm, I'm one that is big on people development. And so I serve in various capacities. As you alluded to, I am the CARICOM Youth Ambassador for Jamaica. And this is a role that allows me to reflect what an ambassador does, to reflect that personal strength of character as a youth and also to champion the values of what it means to be a Caribbean citizen and a Caribbean youth. I'm also the director for international relations with Youth Education Association. This is a charitable organization here in Jamaica where we pursue various lines of educational development for our young people, whether it be through literacy interventions, support for students to assist them throughout school. We are there to provide that support. And finally, I could continue the list, but finally, I'm also the president for the Leo Club of St. Andrews Central, and this is the youth arm for the Lions Club, which is part of the wider Lions International. And this club, we lead various service projects, and these service projects range on a various thematic areas, looking at eradication of hunger, environmental pursuit, youth development, among other thematic area. And so I would characterize my own being as being one who not only is on a mission to advance myself, but also on a mission to advance the cause of the people of Jamaica. And through this, whatever I do is to align myself to better serve and also to ensure that those who get my service also benefits back through their own upliftment.
And that's great. That's the embodiment of a leader. As I said earlier, you have made yourself available, which is exceptional. Especially as you stated, you're on a mission, not just for yourself, but for the development, especially for those who you come in contact with, which is really important when it comes to making a difference. But in doing your work, what I have seen is that you are being an example for what is possible, and that as you mentioned, you didn't start from wealth, but a background of purpose. And when you establish your purpose, the barriers can be there, but they will not stop you. And that is something that I've learned myself. You can start out in poverty, but if you have purpose, man, you can do and achieve almost anything. It may take time, which everything will take time, but you have been really demonstrating, and especially being a great example for young men in the country. And I want to say that because our young men sometimes seems to be going in the wrong direction, but there are examples there that they can look up to and realize what is possible. And today it becomes a little bit more easier than a few years, maybe 20 years ago, where all the opportunities weren't really maybe they were there, but it's like you couldn't see it. If you start out in poverty, you couldn't achieve what you want, because when you're in poverty, you kind of look at yourself based on your social status, not
Indeed.
where you want to go. But I can go on and on and on and talk about overcoming those challenges, and to position yourself to make a positive impact, which you are doing exceptionally well. So my question to you, to start off this conversation, which is a personal journey and breaking the norm, can you share your story and what led you to break away from traditional path?
I would say it started from the very fact of my being as someone from the rural side of Jamaica. You did not grow into abundance, but I was forced to be able to utilize whatever I had to multiply that. And so that would have driven me to ensure that whatever I do, it is guided by the sole mission of building my capacity and more so to have a higher order, higher calling. And so The journey could have been the typical journey where you are characterized by resource challenges, and that would have defined the circumstances. But I did not follow that journey. I utilized that journey as somewhat a springboard where I would have looked at my situation and ultimately determined that there is much more out there that I can offer. And by virtue of this, the realities of my circumstances at the time, as I said at the top of the interview, I might not have been born into abundance, but what I was never short on is perseverance and ambition. Here in Jamaica, ambition is a major thing. And so, coupled with my own self worth and self determination, I would have tied that ambition to characterize and to frame the journey that I would have taken. And that would, I believe, personified the journey throughout my earlier educational life. But even as I advanced through university, I started to somewhat ferment and to solidify how I will continue to build out my journey. And so that got me into the realm of public policy. And for people out there, they can understand and appreciate public policy as being a seminal vehicle that anyone can use to change the lives of people. Because one government policy can either break or make citizens. And so my journey has been shaped at this juncture by that focus on public policy, how we can use government as a vehicle to uplift the lives of people. And that is essentially what I've been doing here in Jamaica. And the journey ahead, as I plan from now, is really to continue on that trajectory, characterized by not just a focus on self fulfillment, but also a focus on the wider development of people and the spheres in which I operate.
Man, if you continue on that path, don't change, don't let no opportunity make you lose, those values. Because man, if you can, you will be okay. You're gonna be all right. Um, Man, if you continue, with those values, a lot of young people, a lot of people, lives will be better. Because that's what matters. It's not so much of what we get out of what we do, but what impact we make. And impact will be a result of us maintaining our values, maintaining, those characteristics that we start the journey with. And just listening to you sharing, just your journey from where you start and what drive you, the future is in good hands. To be honest with you, once you stay on that path, you're going to be all right. But the people need leaders who understands that it's not about me and what I can get from what I'm doing. Yes, you will be rewarded, but once you take on the need of the people and support the people, great things will happen for you, and then great things will happen for the people. So I really appreciate you sharing that, which leads me to my next question. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced when stepping outside of societal expectations?
I think one of the challenges that especially young men face is that there is a societal stereotype that young men should adopt a persona where education is not something that you pursue. And it is sad because we live in a social reality where men continue to be what I would describe under siege, because the tide has so shifted that men have lost their place in terms of the strong male presence that societies require. And that is fundamentally a part of a reasoner that is part and could be accounted for by virtue of the fact that a lot of young men have taken themselves out of being empowered and also empowering themselves. So I would say that the challenge would have started there, how to turn the tide on that typical narrative. Because a typical young man in Jamaica and maybe the wider Caribbean, if you're pursuing education, you're looked at differently. You're not seen as the the kind of individual who is hot and hip, if you could say. So we really have to shift the narrative surrounding young men and education. And it is instructive that your platforms speak about black male empowerment, because we have to retake the narrative regarding that. So the challenge would have really been to how I can turn and defy the expectation of just being another black male that doesn't aspire for more or aspire for greatness. But that challenge was not difficult to overcome, because whilst I operate within a social context, I also have a strong value system that you alluded to earlier, which has helped to build my own outlook on life. And so I have been able to withstand those kind of external pressures. And today I am using what I've been able to accomplish as a platform to even inspire other young men to aspire for more. It cannot be that you are just another statistics, whether it is a statistic for criminality or a statistics for delinquency. You have to claim your stake. You have to be a person of significance and contributing substantially to your society. So I would characterize the challenge in that realm, but I'm happy to say that that challenge could not become my reality.
Well, man, and again, just listening to you, sharing, just how you overcome the limitations that placed on us as men. Because as you stated, which it is still happening today. It's like, going after educational pursuit, especially, or just to transform who you are based on your social status. It's like look upon as something negative. You want to be better, but it is still looked up on as being negative. And I think, young men do take on, that persona because that's what they think is accepted, not knowing that it's only limiting them from becoming who they are capable of becoming. But you said something which is, sorry, which is really, really important. We have lost our place in society, as the leader that we're supposed to be. Because if we're not educating ourselves, if we're not taking on the thing that's going to make us become the best that we can be, we're not going to be in the roles to lead. And if we're
Indeed.
not leading, who is going to be leading the young men? They're not going to develop those characteristics, those masculine characteristics that is needed to lead. It's not to say women can't help to develop young men, but men need to develop men, help them to be the best that they can be. But as you stated, despite the limitations, your internal values, help to make you make the decisions that have take you to where you are today. But we know that not everyone have developed those internal drive, that self motivation, that self determination, that self worth. Because if those are not established, we will succumb to. And we have seen that where young men have succumbed to the limitations, the things that they see around them. But I just glad that you are there and have been an example, and are being that example for young people, because it is important that they see, because it's easier to become what you see. So, man, continue to demonstrate what is possible. My next question to you is was there a pivotal moment when you realized you had to forge your own path? What was that experience like?
I would say at the point of concluding my secondary education, one of the things that especially young men are faced when they would have completed at least high school education is that family and community might frame their continued development as one that they have to take ownership of. And a lot of young men don't oftentimes have the benefit or the support to continue to advance themselves educationally. So they might not be able to go to university, for example. But thankfully, I would have had parents who were very supportive at the juncture of exiting high school. And so at that juncture, it is a turning point where I now have to decide how I will shape my future. And so at that point, whilst the resources weren't in abundance, as I alluded to at the top, it was either not going to university or maybe finding what we would say in Jamaica, street hustle.
That's true.
So those were the options, but ultimately I would have chose to pursue higher education to university. And so whilst I did not have the first penny to be able to pay for that first semester, I pursued a path to accumulate debt to be able to allow me to enter university. And that whole process of obtaining a student loan here in Jamaica, it is not one of the most easiest thing to do. You have to secure guarantors. You have to provide significant documentation to really tell the entity that you are the poorest of the poorest. But despite all of that, I would have gone through the ropes. I would have ultimately been able to secure a student loan, which I utilized for the first year of my education. So, having turned that corner and having made that conscious decision that I will not just be the next statistics, I would have applied myself in my first year in university through the application of my own God given talents. And that would have enabled me to land a scholarship in my second year. And that scholarship spanned for the further duration of my studies. And so whilst I started in debt through student loan, the journey did not end on that similar trajectory. And so I say that to really say that it is oftentimes not how you might start, but it is the plans that you put in place and the plans that God has for your life that will ultimately shape the outcomes and your end result. So, my message really to the viewing public is really do not be daunted by how you might start. It is really where you are going, because ultimately that is what is your guiding compass. And that was what was my guiding compass. And look where I'm at today.
Oh yeah, man. Just listening to your story, man, it's just really profound, and but not even profound, but it shows, um, again, what is possible, and that you can start with nothing, as they would say, and achieve great things. Because you say it's not how you start, it's where you're going and what plan God has for you. Because sometimes all it takes is to start, just to take that first step. It may be on your own, maybe you have the feeling that something can change, but you may not get the support you need until you take the first step. And that is a great reminder for anyone, especially young people, because sometimes they're looking at where they are and say, man, you know what? My life can change. I don't know how I'm going to do it. And sometimes it's just to take that first step, and things will change. And just to believe, because without the belief in self, or
Indeed.
belief in the possibility, you may talk yourself out of the very thing you want to achieve out of life, even though innately you have the ability. And sometimes, because of our circumstances in life, we don't even know the greatness that we have in us, because we're not even focusing on what we have within. We're focusing on what we're seeing outside around us, and not giving what we have internally the opportunity to grow, to evolve, to awaken. And just to talk a little bit about, as I talk about student loan in Jamaica and how difficult it is, man. In my time in high school, man, in 2000, right, I've had a lot of friends who had many subjects. They had like 10, 12 subjects, and didn't go on to college because they couldn't afford it, and they didn't have known guarantors or people to speak or sign off, on, so for you to even push yourself to the extent to make sure it happens, that shows a lot about you. Not to say others couldn't have done it, but I know what it's like, not having that upfront, to start, the journey. And I was going to ask you, what are some of the societal norms that you consciously decide to reject? But listening to you, I've shared it. But just to share again for the listeners, what are some of the things that you reject, so we can go into the next question for those who may have not heard it whilst you were explaining your journey. But what are some of the things that you reject so you can be where you are today?
Indeed. The first one I would say is not to really curate your life around the expectations that people have of you. Because if you do that, you ultimately set up yourself to live in what people expect. And what people expect might not necessarily be what is best for you.
Right.
And so you first have to be able to distill what are those expectations that you will attract, but what are those expectations that you will distance yourself from. And one of the typical expectation of young black men is that education is not high on the agenda. It is one that you demonstrate the masculinity, but education is just not a part of the equation. And so that, I believe, has to be a fundamental pillar. Another typical expectation that society has is one where you pursue greatness, but you do it in a way where you might abandon core values. I am fundamentally driven by a value system where I must not accumulate or achieve things that compromise my own integrity, that compromise my own sense of being. And so people will expect you to cut corners. They will not expect you to do things by the books. And so that also is something that are typical expectations, especially when you reach certain points, people expect you not to go the normal route that regular individuals would take. So that also I have to work on to reverse those typical expectations. And finally, the expectation that you must settle. A lot of the time, people settle for mediocre. And so we have to look at how we reverse that expectation of mediocrity to ensure that we continuously evolve, we continuously unearth even greater things that lies within all of us. So those are really some of the expectations that I continue to reverse, and what I would implore everyone to continue to reverse, because those expectations are not designed for your best interest. It is really designed to keep you in a box and to limit your own God given capacity and capabilities.
Man, well said. Well said. I don't even have to say anything to what you just stated, but I'm just going to highlight three before we get into the next question, because I think it is important, especially, that, so many things have been, placed on us to limit us, or, the way for us to achieve success, that, we stray away from our core values, but we get there and then we end up losing everything, because you don't want to get there and end up losing. You want to do it the right way, so when you get there you actually earn it honestly, which is really important. You're not taking things just to make sure you are successful, but you stick to your core values. But also, one thing that cannot be stressed when it comes to us as black males, and that is education, because it seems as if it is not something that's been pushed. We are pushed to become athletes more than our entertainers, more than education. And for us to evolve, for us to transcend the limitations or the stereotypes, we have to focus on education. And the next thing that you said, for a lot of us, man, we have been unconsciously take on that idea of settling, and if we settle, as you mentioned, we will not unearth the great things that we have within us. Because I do believe, as I believe you do as well, that we all have something within us that the world needs. And if we settle, we will not, achieve that which we have within. But I'm going to move just a bit forward with a different segment of the conversation, which is on resilience and overcoming barriers. And I can say you may have touched on some of those barriers already. But my first question from this segment is, how did you navigate moments of doubt or fear when making unconventional choices?
I Very brilliant question. I must say that fear is one of those things that are inevitable. We are all humans, and we are oftentimes planning for a future that is yet to be revealed. And so fear is always a part of the whole makeup of just being human. So I will start there. And I would go on to further allude to the fact that throughout my time in university and pursuing my own line of study in public policy, one of the fear would have been, will I be able to find my own voice within the realm of public service? Because the thing about public service is that there must be something that drives whatever you do. There must be a higher calling that causes you to get up every morning and go to serve the people. And so that was one of my fear in university, whether I would be able to find that calling in the realm of public policy. But I must say that that fear would have been managed by my own doing, because it is one thing to have fear, but it is another thing to accept the fear and also to settle with the fear. So I did not accept that fear or any other fear I might have. Recall, I would have mentioned not being able to see a clear path to university. That would have been a fear that many young Jamaicans can express. But to accept that fear would have meant that I would not have pursued higher education, but I would have seen the fear and I would have programmed my mind that I need to overcome this fear. And in overcoming the fear, I had to take action. So the message has to be that it is okay to have fear, it is okay to doubt yourself. But what is not okay is for you to accept the fear and to accept a defeatist mentality. So, what we have to do is really to summon the courage to acknowledge that you feel fearful, but at the end of the day, you also have to take the tactical steps. You have to look out for those windows of opportunity where you can take that targeted approach to tapping into whatever opportunities might come your way. And I will say this, that a lot of individuals, they miss opportunities because they simply never gave it a chance. And so we have to ensure that we do not allow fear to kill dreams that are not even born as yet. And so that kind of mantra I would have taken on from very early, and which I would have used as a strategy to overcome my own fears and to ultimately be where I'm at today. If you ask me where I will be 10 years from now, I might not be able to say definitively because we all harbor fear. But what I know is that I will apply myself to ensure that I'm at a point where God has designed for me and at a point that best reflects the capabilities that I have.
Man, well said, well said, well said. And I will just touch on fear before I get into the next question, because that is one thing that paralyzes a lot of people. You know, having the fear is one thing, as you stated, but there is a saying that says, "Feel the fear and do it anyway." So the fear can be there, but you get over the fear by taking action. And sometimes, we are our worst enemy, and we stop ourselves from doing the very thing that we are more than capable of doing because we allow fear to stop us. But how you stated it, man, it is well said, and it's also inspirational for those who are listening, because we all experience that moment when we are wondering if we should take that step forward or not. And what have often happens, like once you take the step, you realize, man, this thing, it's not so difficult. It's even much easier than you would think. But if we don't, we'll never know what's possible because we allow fear or doubt to stop us from um, going after the very thing that we want. So, my next question to you: how did you handle criticism or skepticism from others, especially from within your own community? Because sometimes, that's where it comes from. Those who are closest, once we decide that we are going to defy the odds. But how did you handle criticism and skepticism?
And that's a very interesting question. And I had to chuckle a bit because it brings me back to a comment that I would say a relative would have made. So at the point where I was venturing into university and my father would have been expressing about his aspirations, his excitement but also acknowledging the challenges. One remark that a relative would have made was that he should really let me just go and find something to do, essentially saying to him that whilst I am graduating from secondary school, he should also graduate me. So, so he should not continue to support and to fight with me into university. So that brings me directly to the question that you have, is that you really have to construct your life not around what people expect of you or what people think of you. You really have to construct your life around what you believe you value and what your worth is. Because if your expectations are set by the expectations that people have of you, then you are setting up yourself to be disappointed. Because not because people might be your family or people might be within your inner circle doesn't mean they are necessarily in it for your own upliftment.
Our best interest.
Indeed. So you have to be very conscious of those realities and really lean on your own understanding as to what your purpose in life is. Lean on God's direction and also lean on people who are genuinely happy for your own advancement. So I would really characterize the question and the response to within the context that as individuals, we really cannot put all our eggs in one basket. That basket being the expectations that people have of us. Because if those expectations are low, then your natural outturn will be low. So you have to balance what people expect of you and also what you expect of yourself. So you have to put a greater premium on your expectation for yourself and not be deterred or to be confined to what people expect of you.
Man, well said. Well said. And it happens a lot, because people sometimes can't see what's possible for you because they can't see what's possible for them. So a lot of times they're projecting their own limitations
Indeed.
on you. And that's what, as people, we have to understand. When some people say you can't do something, it's not because they don't believe you can, it's because they don't believe they can. So they're projecting that limitation on you. And we have to be mindful, but it goes back to what you said. You have to analyze, the expectations, outside expectations, and to your own expectations, because again, people may have low expectation for you. And if you're coming from poverty, and if you're coming from where they see you at the bottom, of the social status, they're going to say, man, you can't achieve that. How are you going to achieve it? But again, it's not about where you are, it's about you as the individual. Because if you're ambitious enough and you believe in yourself enough, you will find a way. It may
Indeed.
not come conventional way, but you will find a way, because ambition really drives you. It will help you to come out of the situation that you were born into, the situation that may be a limitation to many. But when you believe in yourself and you believe God has a different plan for you, as I said earlier, man, those walls cannot stop you, because you become now unstoppable, because you are being driven by something different, something higher, a greater purpose. So it's important. So my next question, to you, and that was a great response, because a lot of people do experience, criticism and skepticism when they want to go after bigger goals in life, because they're first going to encounter those who are closest, to them. And
Indeed.
sometimes they are the very one who will stop you. So, my next question to you, what sacrifices did you have to make in order to stay true to your vision?
I would say my journey has been one of understanding timing. So life will come at you very quickly. But one of the things I've been able to appreciate up to this point is that there are things in life that you want to achieve, you want to accomplish, but it might not just be the timing. And so you have to be very cognizant of delayed gratification. So some will see some things as sacrifices that you have to endure. But I oftentimes will look at those moments as just not my timing. And so to be able to spot those moments where you do not have what you would like, or you do not have the things necessary to propel you to the next level, those sacrificing moment um, is really you trading a better future for a future now where you have somewhat of a lack in something. And so I would say that most of my sacrifices would have really been through my university, my college experience. So even before I would have ventured into university, just to have something, what I would say now is simple, a laptop, that would have been a sacrifice in my eyes at that point in time, because the resources would not have just not have been there at that point in time. But at that time, despite that sacrifice or challenges, I would have still had to make do and to pivot. So the fact that I don't have a laptop during high school, I would have to go to the parish library in St. Elizabeth and ensure that all of my assignments are done in one go. All of my research are conducted in one go. So that sacrifice and other sacrifices would have helped to shape my own being to become more resourceful, to become more forward thinking, to be able to overcome those challenges. But those sacrifices at that point, I believe, has helped now to shape my own perspective on life itself, because a moment in time you will not have what you require, but oftentimes it teaches you lessons, and those lessons can be replicated in other dispensation where you can apply those principles to achieve the greatest. So I would definitely say my greatest period of sacrifice would have really been throughout university. You see the lifestyle in university, you see individuals being able to purchase things and you're not able to do so. You see individuals with the multiple gadgets and devices, but you're not able to do all of those things. But it it would have taught me to be humble, to be resourceful, and to just look at the bigger picture and to remain focused on ultimately where I want to head.
Man, that is good. The sacrifice is a must, and also, as you stated, we should understand the timing. And in understanding the timing, that means, as you mentioned, we have to have those delayed gratification, because things may not happen when we want them to happen, but that doesn't mean they're not going to happen. And once we approach what we're doing with that mindset, it becomes easier to navigate our way through the challenges, or through the delays. Because on this journey, there will be delays. But if we can see those delays as an opportunity to be better, we will be better because we're going to take the time and double down and work on something. Either work on what we are working on, or work on ourselves. Because where we're going, we have to develop. We have to become the best that we can be. Especially when you have an aspiration to do great things, the foundation is important, and the delay at times help to get that foundation right, because you don't want to have that big structure and you didn't go deep enough. So the delay at times help to um, get that foundation right. So my next question to you, but actually I wanted to go back to, I know those people who have doubted you. Um, what are they saying now? Are they being inspired? Do they have a change of thought and say, "Man, you have really defied the odds"? But in any of those experiences where you can share.
Most certainly, you will always have those, and in my own immediate reality, there are those, but naturally they will be singing your praises, because as you made the point earlier, a lot of the time, the vision that you have, others are not able to see that vision. And so, because of their limitation, their perspective is oftentimes limited. And so, it is just like looking in a rear view mirror. Others are not able to see what you are seeing, but you know what is behind and what is also ahead. So there will always be those detractors, and those detractors are definitely now singing my praises. But again, I'm not one to be consumed with the sentiments of people, because they will be singing the praises now, but they will also be a turncoat tomorrow. So you have to be very conscious of that reality. And it's just the very cyclical nature of human beings. They change like the weather.
That's right,
So you really have to go with the flow, the ebb and flow of what humanity really turns out, and really stay connected to those who are truly in your corner.
man. Well said. Well said. And that leads me to this question: how have you used your success to empower others, particularly young black men?
I would say, whatever space I go in, I'm always one to create an indelible impression on others, and it oftentimes can be in the most simplest of way. So others will put you on a pedestal where they expect you to give off particular energy. So they would put you in a box to say that you're successful, and so they expect you to be detached from people who we would say regular people. But I'm one who always remain humble. I'm one who always remain connected to people at different socioeconomic level, because I fundamentally believe that before we are any individual with big positions, with big titles in front and behind our names, we are first humans, and we must treat each other with that humanly touch. And so, what I try to use as my inspiration is not even whatever I have been able to achieve, but what I've been able to do is to use how I just go about my own life, and how I see and treat people. So that, I believe, is a major inspiration for other young black men. They see that you can be an individual of substance, but you do not have to be an individual who separates or think that you are above anyone. So that is my first mantra. And secondly, I've always adopted a persona where whatever I do, it must not just be out of a need for self aggrandizement. It must be within the context of having a higher calling. It must lead to something greater. And so that kind of modus operandi, it is something that would resonate with other people, other young persons. They can see that you can do things that are uplifting, things that might get you into the spotlight, but at the end of the day, it is not driven by a self interested being, but it is driven by a genuine commitment to uplift and to impact others that I'm able to come in contact with. And finally, I would say that I've been able to inspire and to impact others by just being an individual who is big on collaboration and not division. Because oftentimes, when people put you on a certain pedestal, they expect you to retreat from interfacing or from collaborating with others. But I'm one who is big on pulling together, putting resources together, putting mindset together, and seeing how we can come out with the greatest impact for whatever we are doing. And so as one who is big on that collaboration and not one who builds division, I believe that that also helps to inspire other young men to see that we cannot do this alone, and whatever we're doing, we can multiply the impact by working together with others who are similarly like minded and who similarly share the vision for progress and for development of others. Because ultimately, we're doing this for not just ourselves, but we're doing this for the greater good of our community.
You know, continue being the person that you are. Don't let nothing, make you compromise your values. Because if you continue on that path, a lot of people will benefit from whatever you do. Sometimes even just your presence, because your characteristics, the things that you stand for. It's not always, you're not going to be able to talk to everybody, but by the things that you do and the things that you stand for, as they would say, you walk the talk. It will, help other people to see and know what they should be doing and can do, because it's not about self. It's about what we do for humanity. And I love how you say, don't lose who we are because of what we end up achieving. We should continue to be the person so we can connect with those who, may have started with us. We just may be, fortunate to achieve some accomplishment or achieve some goals, but we're still humans and we need to treat everyone as human. But we're getting to the top of the hour. I have one more question that I'm going to ask you. But before I do ask that question, where can the listeners find you and support you or get to learn more about the work that you're doing so they can, support you in making the impact that you want to make?
Certainly. So on the professional side, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. It is at Odane Brooks. On the more lighter side, you can connect with me also on Instagram. That is at Odane Brooks JA. Similarly on Twitter. And if anyone who is more minded for email communication, they can also drop me a mail at odanebrooks17 at gmail.com. And I definitely would welcome any connections, any collaborations that individuals might want to pursue, because I'm in this to multiply whatever impact can be created to advance the agenda of humanity.
Man, you are on a journey to do it, and I believe you're going to do it. I just kind of sense, man, you're going to do so great. You may even surprise yourself because you have the persona. You're really not only saying the things during this conversation, you're actually doing it, because I've seen that you have been in the classroom, you have been reading with the kids, you have been out there in the community, doing the work, so once you continue on that path and maintain your core values, man, they will say the sky's the limit, but we're going to see you going much further. um, so but I want to say, man, just continue doing the work that you're doing because it's important, not just because you're going to get the recognition and the award, but you planted seeds of possibility in the minds and hearts of those who may not believe it is possible, which it's even more rewarding to see someone aspiring for something because stood on your values, you go after the things that matters to you. So it's important, man, just keep doing the work. So my final question to you before we wrap up today is, what legacy are you working to build? I wish you may have said it. And how do you want to be remembered?
Very packed question there, but I would say that the legacy that I'm working to build is to be first remembered as a human that was always about advancing the welfare of humanity, because oftentimes we get caught up in just advancing our own agenda, and we lose sight that we also have a wider ecosystem that needs our support. So I definitely want to be remembered as a practitioner who committed his life to developing, whether it be policies, programs, or interventions that transformed the circumstances of Jamaicans and the global citizenry. So I want to be remembered as that individual, one who was guided by strong moral values, one who lived a life that is reflective of one committed to the development of the human race, and one who ultimately gave service to development and the upliftment of people.
Man, well said. Well said. And thanks for your commitment. Sorry, and thank you for being here on this, joining this conversation today on the Blackmail Impact. So, for the listeners who are here, as always, the goal is to bring individuals that will share knowledge, perspective, and insights that we all can benefit from. So, Mr. Brooks, it's a pleasure to have you here on the Blackmail Impact.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cross. It was really my pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure. For the listeners who are here, and as always, the Blackmail Impact is where positive changes are inspired. Please continue to give us your support as we continue on this journey to make a positive impact. Thank you.